So, chaps, today we are going to talk about the property market, but we've gone away, we've done our homework for this episode. So, for people watching the video, be it avocado clients or for people listening on the Landlord Page podcast, we've gone away, we've done a bit of fact searching, spoke to some brokers, spoke to some data people to really try and give you a good insight into exactly what is happening with the property market at the moment, because depending on what social platform you're on, what news platform you're on, everyone's got an opinion and none of them are the same. So we're going to try and give you, the listeners and the watchers, a really good insight into exactly what we think is going to happen. And it might be that we don't all agree on it, but we're going to go into it and give the raw, honest truth. So Tristan, I know you've done a little bit of prep work. What are you going to share with us today? Who have you been and spoken to?
So mine's going to be from Goodlord. Like you said, everyone's going to have a different opinion on the stats and figures that we speak about, but thankfully with Goodlord, it's actual information of tenants that have started or been processed.
Okay.
So it is exactly how it is. It's not predicted based upon rental price of listing that's gone up on Rightmove or Zoopla. So it's accurate data.
Specifically around lettings, and I know you've been talking to Akil as well, obviously our mortgage advisor, and shooting some videos with him, so we can touch on that as well. And Mike?
I've gone big. I've gone for Zoopla. So one of the biggest portals, one of the biggest data capture companies in the UK to find out what's going on with the sales market.
And I've been fishing around on Rightmove and talking to quite a few mortgage brokers to get their view. And obviously we've got our own opinion, facts, figures on what we see is going on with the market.
Not short on those, eh?
No, we are on the tools 24/7, so we know exactly what's going on there as well. So let's get stuck straight into it. So, Mike, as you said on the intro there, you've been having a little look into Zoopla. I love the Zoopla report. It comes out monthly. I think anyone can subscribe to that. I don't think
so.
You just have to be an agent, but they do supply some really good information and good data. So, overall, what is Zoopla saying with the property market at the moment?
Okay, so Zoopla break the world down into what's going on year, and they also give you a 5-year average. So you can put some sanity behind things, because the last couple of years obviously have been pretty unprecedented. So the thing that's hit the news over the last week or so is that house prices have dropped 1.3% month on month, which the newspapers and the press have absolutely loved, because everyone loves doom and gloom, right? What doesn't feature in the newspaper headlines is that happens every single August.
Yep.
Without fail. So a 1.3% drop month on month isn't a result of interest rate rises, isn't a result of recession, isn't a result of Ukraine. I don't know what other reasons we've got, but it's a result of it being August. House prices where you've got 4-bedroom detached houses at £700,000. Unfortunately, half your buyers are in Corfu, so you're not gonna have as many buyers for it, so the prices are going to drop.
Yeah, so that is very normal for those, especially the family homes being the high value ticket stuff. So naturally, the properties that are coming to the market in August are the ones that aren't on seasonal holidays, which in reality takes the families out of the equation, which means the higher end stuff is not coming to the market. The lower end stuff still goes on, and the average house price drops. And what the media sometimes do with that, Mike, is they like to kind of say, right, well, if you times that by 12, that gives you a year's outlook. And it's just such a false economy of scale when the media tend to do that. It frustrates the life out of me. Times it by 12 and you get
minus 14%. The world's going to end.
Yeah.
From an article from no one who's ever been in the property industry, I'd imagine.
But we're of that age bracket where, yes, family and friends are on holiday, but market is potentially changing. If we look at base rates gone up twice, or 0.5%, and quite a lot this year, 4 times maybe in the last 12 months. Interest rates are much higher than they were 6 months ago. So when you're talking to investors that are actively searching, because you do talk to quite a few, have they got concerns? Are any of those sort of pulling away from a potential search, or are they still active? Is it a case that the market is starting to crumble?
I mean, from my side, I haven't noticed much change personally. The investors I'm still speaking to are still looking at buying more properties or getting there first. I'm still having more investors register. I'm getting more questions regarding it. But I was only speaking to someone 2 days ago where they're looking at buying another one. Then he put theirs to let a few months ago. So from my side of things, I have not seen much. I mean, things may change in sort of 6 months' time with the cost of living increasing and people starting to budget a lot more with energy prices becoming ridiculous. But from what I've seen, no, I haven't. The rental market's still incredibly busy, and I think that's it's showing with all the results.
Well, let's back that up with a stat then. Interest rates for landlords have gone up, 1.5 to 2% on a mortgage, right? Is that being covered by rent increases?
Definitely more.
So what's the numbers?
So rents went up last month alone by 18%, or just under 18%. According to Goodlord, that was a majority because of student lets that went through. But as an average for across England is just under 18%, which to me shows that rents are incredible. We were speaking about it the other day, Mike, where we listed a 2-bedroom house and it went 100. Well, we had offers £125 over asking price, which is incredible for what that property was.
Not just with one either. You could have
7.
You could let it to 7 different tenants at that price.
So we're not short of tenants either. Demand's up, rental prices are substantially up, which last month was proof of that. And void periods are down. Void periods are down by 41%. So it's gone from an average of 20 days to 10, or just over 10 days.
I actually spoke on our live chat, on our Facebook 6 p.m. live chat, and we had Dave Howarth, mortgage advisor, that's been on the podcast actually, and anyone following our socials will have seen Uncle Dave on there giving us a lot of updates because he's just a great, knowledgeable mortgage advisor. And one of the first things we asked him is, why do you think the interest rates have climbed to where they've climbed to? Is it negative or positive? And obviously it's never positive for buyers to pay more on interest. But his perspective on it is, when they do product releases as banks at the moment, there's so much take up on these products that when you're the most competitive bank at the top of the rates, and by top I mean the cheapest rates, not the highest rates, when you're the top of that pile as a group of mortgage advisors, you look at that, they get high volume that they almost can't control, they then pull the rate off, and then the next best one goes to the top. So he actually feels that the increase in interest rates is to regulate workload, because the banks have only got so many physical hands that they can progress these cases through at. So when they're the most appealing bank in a certain product, they can only do that for a period of time before it becomes unmanageable amounts of business. So it's not like the banks are seeing less supply or less demand from buyers. They're actually seeing an amount that is almost uncontrollable and therefore having to pull it off. So just contrary to what some of the media may say in terms of negativity, market crumbling, demand is dropping, well, the banks are saying it isn't, and mortgage advisors are saying it isn't.
I think there's something to also note on that as well, though. So from speaking to Akil from our mortgage broker, and also Dave as well, longer term fixed rates are more competitive than the 1 and 2 year fixed at the moment. So if you go to a 5-year fixed, the rates are a lot more competitive, which shows it's a bit bumpy at the moment, but long term there's confidence in the banks that the market is going to come back. And let's be honest, rates have been as cheap as they've ever been for such a long period of time. They needed to go up.
Yeah.
So
I made a tongue-in-cheek TikTok video recently about the fact that if anyone did a mortgage 6 months ago, so let's say the back end of 2021 or the start of 2022, and they didn't fix for 5 years, they effed up basically. And we didn't know that was going to be the case, but they did, because now you look at it and you think, right, they've got their 1.6s, now it's 3.6s. And it'll be a frustration because those people that did a 2-year fixed in 2 years' time are then going to see potentially 4.5% rather than the nice 2% or 1.9% they could have fixed for 5 years. But that's happened, and there's nothing we can do about that. Where I worry slightly for are people that purchased, say, 2 years ago or 20 months ago, and they got these phenomenal like 1.1, 1.2 interest rates. They stretched themselves because they were in an absolute battle where the stamp duty holiday was to try and maximize the capacity of their loan. Affordability since then has gone up drastically. Their interest rate is going to probably triple at least, and they're going to come to the end of their fixed term with higher bills, higher cost of living, higher interest rate. That's my only worry on the market. That's the black mark at the moment, is what's going to happen with those people towards the end of the year when they can't afford their mortgage and potentially their interest rate. I don't know what you think on that, Mike, but that has to be a thing.
Yeah, I think the phrase interest rate tripling is probably a bit of a headline grabber, in my opinion.
Are you saying I like to use clickbait?
Maybe. Here's my anti-media opinion again. I'm in the middle of remortgaging now because I took a 3-year fixed rate out 3 years ago. So I am one of the people who effed up. Without knowing, interest rates were stable. I got about 1.6 something. I'm now going to 3.47, I think. My mortgage is going from £1,000 to about £1,250 a month. Now, that is just over double interest rate, but my mortgage is going up by 20% because interest rates are really, really low. So the majority of what I'm paying is still on repayment. It's not on interest. So when your interest rate doubles or triples, it doesn't mean your mortgage repayment doubles or triples. I do agree with you in some part, though. The people who took out Help to Buy mortgages going on for 5 years ago, that kind of thing, which are all maturing now, where they'd be expecting to buy out Help to Buy with equity and then have as cheap a mortgage as they had before, might be in for a little bit of a shock, in the same way that everyone's in for a shock on their utility bills. So, holidays might get cancelled. Mercedes on drives might need to be cancelled. iPhone 46 1 terabyte issue might have to be cancelled, in the lifestyle that we're used to.
Yeah.
But I think when the kind of interest rate tripling, in inverted commas, comes out, I think people associate that with their mortgage tripling, which it just isn't.
Yeah, that's a fair point, because it isn't a case of your £1,000 going to £3,000.
That would be a problem.
Yeah. And it's no different to the rental element. If 3 years ago it was £1,000 rent, it's now comfortably £1,250.
Easy, yeah.
So, the 250 quid increase on mortgage is the same in rent. Everyone's in the same ballpark. And if you need a 3-bedroom house because you're a family of 4 and you're living in a 2-bedroom flat, you will find a way to move home. That will happen, wherever it comes in, whether it means no holiday for the first 2 years or whatever it may be, you'll find a way to make that work. And it doesn't sound ideal, but what it does mean is it means the mortgage, the property market keeps going and mortgages will keep being written. And that is the information that we're getting from a lot of the mortgage brokers. I guess on the cost of living things, we can't dictate or work out what's going to happen. I have seen, obviously, that petrol prices are now declining, which is good news. So, I'm filling up 40 quid at a time, knowing that the next time I'll go and put 40 quid in, I'm getting more for my money. I'm not filling up the full tank at the moment.
It's not just me that does that. Thank you.
There's a little tip for people to save a few quid. But what's quite interesting is we had a guy from Utility Warehouse in the office, actually, and just caught up with him last week. And his perspective was that probably what people are paying in utilities and energy prices at the moment will be close to double by sort of January going into February based on the current hikes. And I'm not going to get into how you save money on your utilities and things like that, but I guess what's worrying is that's the winter months and this is the summer months, and people are typically, unless you've got an aircon unit in your bedroom, not using too much on the fuel and stuff like that. So I guess there is question marks out there. But what's Zoopla saying on demand? Because they normally have quite a good report on a 5-year average for buyer demand. That shows registrations of new buyers looking for viewings and things like that on portals.
5-year average demand is up for housing 25%.
And nearly half of that, so 40% of that 5 years, we have to put that into perspective, that the last 2 years have been as busy as it has been since 05, 06, 07. Not, in fact,
transaction levels,
Yeah, and you've got the stamp duty spike. So that average is still, when you look at the 5 years, that's 2 years worth of hecticness. And to see it still as an average up is quite significant for, I guess, people's confidence in the market, because people are still looking to buy at the moment.
Yeah, still looking to move. The number of houses on the market is 29% down on a 5-year average. The demand is 25% up. So that's a 54% swing, if my maths is right. And sales agreed is 17% up on normal. So that that just shows, regardless of what's going on, people are still looking to move. And it's not downsizing, it's not moving out of the market, it's not getting out, it's sideways moving, it's moving for big reasons, and it's upsizing that I see every single day of the week.
All the time.
What else are Goodlord? Who's
Good Lord.
Goodlord? There's a Goodlord somewhere. Hello, Lloyd. What about Goodlord? What are they telling us in terms of the lettings figures, the more that market, the future first time buyers? What's going on with tenants and the landlords?
So you put Goodlord aside then from the demand side of things, but to give you some case studies of what's happened recently, in the last week I've listed 3 properties and I've been inundated in inquiries. One of them was a 4-bedroom detached house. I had in excess of 30 inquiries within 24 hours.
30 tenants looking for a 4-bed. And how much is the 4-bed?
2,300.
Okay.
We only had 3 viewings take place the following day because of availability. And we had 3 asking price offers, and one of them went substantially over the asking price.
So you did 3 viewings because you only needed to do 3 viewings, not because
Basically.
only 3 people wanted to view. You had 30,
No.
So 10% of the people that requested to view ended up getting to view, and 100% of those people offered.
Basically. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
Listed a 2-bedroom terraced house with 2 parking spaces. Once again, I'm still getting inquiries through now, even so it's changed status to let.
Mm-hmm.
I had probably near to 80 inquiries on that. We had 9 viewings take place and we had 7 offers on the property. One was £125 over the asking price. And that come on at £1,250, which historically over the past 6 months or so, maybe pushing a little bit longer than that, anywhere between 12 and 12.50 is the going rate.
Okay.
And I listed a 1-bedroom in the Reading direction. And once again, I'm still getting so many inquiries on that. I've had 50 inquiries. And we've had 3 offers from 5 viewings that have taken place, and there's an open house tomorrow taking place on that.
So tenants can afford to rent at these high prices because there's a load of them out there that are prepared to do it, basically.
And it's not people scraping through either. It's people that clearly meet the affordability and are in a position to do so. So it's not a case of people are stretching themselves.
Yeah.
Demand is there and people can afford these properties. So clearly, in my opinion, cost of living's not having an impact on these people. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the 2 energy price increases that happen over the next 6 months, whether demand still continues that way. But I think with the lack of rental stock we've had over the past 2 years, we're still playing catch up, and I don't think that will change personally.
Shows a couple of things, doesn't it? It shows, one, estate agents or letting agents primarily can't set the prices. So agents aren't to blame for rent and sale price increases, because you're putting prices on things and then people coming through the front door are just blowing the roof off them. So you're not in control. If someone goes and offers you £135 more, 10, 12% more than the asking price, well, what are you supposed to do about that? When you see sort of negativity about raising prices. And the other thing it shows is, we touched on it earlier, is that rents are raising faster than interest rates are. Everyone's banging on about 6 consecutive interest rates, but rents are going up faster than that. And my measure on the market, as someone who sort of puts one foot in both camps for rental and for sales, is if it's more expensive to rent a property than it is to buy and own it, well, the housing market, the sales market's always going to be strong, because tenants are going to want to buy. There's going to be a demand to buy if it's cheaper to own than it is to rent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the same in pretty much any industry. If it's cheaper to own the car than rent the car, you're going to buy the car.
Yep.
If it's cheaper to rent than it is to buy it, you're going to rent it. So that's a really good sort of dynamic. And at the moment, we just can't call the rental market off. So as long as that flies, all of those people who are renting will have an eye on trying to buy something when the time comes around.
It's interesting as well on the valuations we're doing, because I've found that in recent months, so as recent as that, in recent months, talking to a lot of the avocado agents, the stuff that we've been out to see, there's a lot of properties where they've done these garden extensions. They put these really nice ground floor extra reception spaces off into their garden, or they've extended over garage to make, either garage conversions for playrooms and for offices and things like that. I'm finding at the moment a lot of people have done all that knocking around. It's almost like they came out of furlough and they had all this extra cash and they're like, what should we do to our house? And people, went away and they did loads of stuff to their house. They spent that money, but now they got the bug to kind of make the move, and that maybe was just a stopgap on, should we do this to the property or should we move now? And those people decided they were going to do that to the property. They're all now coming to the market as well. So you're actually seeing a lot of properties on the sales market that have had a lot of significant upgrades done to them in recent years. And I guess the secret is, for people listening, is, will the housing market keep going up? No one knows the answer to that, but I don't think anyone would have a problem with the housing market leveling out for the next 18 months, 24 months. I think everyone would be quite happy to see, this is the baseline. This is what a house is worth in my street. If I want to move, I'll pay that price and I'll get that price on the sale of mine. I don't think anyone's got a problem with that. I think the media would potentially use that to say, well, house prices, if you look at something like 20CI, which is a data that we use, they would say that on average since 2019, the end of 2019, so let's call it 2.5 years, but on average across the UK, there's been like a 26.7% increase in prices across the UK. Wales is like 29 and London is like 19, and then everyone else sort of fills in the middle. So you're talking a quarter of the property equity has gone up in the last 2.5 years. Then that's unsustainable to keep doing that, and especially with all the cost of living. If cost of living was way down and everyone was earning more money, maybe it can, but it can't if it's going both ends of the spectrum. So the facts are, unfortunately, people will pass away and houses will come to the market through probate transactions. Tenants will decide that they want to buy because they no longer want to pay someone else's mortgage. And when they've got the deposit saved, and at the moment you only need 5%, which again is a luxury of this current climate, more demand from there, they'll eventually want to buy. People have had babies and are having babies at the moment, and that will always continue, whether the volume of that is up or down, whether the intake is up or down, whether the lockdown baby rumor is a real thing, we'll find out over, sort of coming years. But the facts are, people will have children, will need to move for schools, for size, for volume. That will keep the market moving. And if people need to move and people need to buy, then the market, we're quite happy with a bit of a plateau for the next 24 months. If we go into recession, I say 24 months because something always happens in that cycle. It will go up again at that point, because there's just simply a shortage of property in the UK, and all the data reads that. What happens over the next 6 or 9 months, and is there a recession? Well, we can't answer that, can we? We don't know. I think the recession fear and phobia, if something like the Ukraine war was to come to an end, or there was to be an agreement there, and that causes the stock market to then shoot up because there's a massive amount of confidence in what's happening there in Ukraine and things like that, that's the sort of trigger that probably a lot of the investment platforms need to see to maybe bring the economy back to a little bit of stability, or rumored stability. But we just don't know the answer to that. But one thing we do know is, at the moment, there's still not enough properties for the amount of buyers. There's still not enough properties for the amount of tenants. And we will have to keep doing these updates for the people that are listening and watching, because the landscape does seem to change every kind of 4 to 6 weeks, or at least in the media's eyes, they like to have a change of take. So putting you on the spot, Tristan, do you think between now and the end of the year there will be a change in the rental market? Do you think if you list a property in December, you will still get 30 inquiries if the price is correct in terms of the average pricing for that current climate? Or do you think there's going to be a drop or an increase? What's your thoughts?
I think to close the year off, I think it will maintain as it is. I think prices will slowly creep up. Demand is still too high to say that it's got any signs of slowing down, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think prices will continue to slowly creep up, maybe not at the rate they've been going, but there's going to be open houses continuing on properties. There's going to be people bidding against each other, and they're the ones that's going to ultimately put the prices up. So that's how I feel it's going to go. I think coming into next year with the second increase of utilities, I think it may start to readjust, but I think time. It's hard for me to say on that because I don't know. I don't know what to expect myself from that side. I've seen the increase on my own bills. And I know other people have, but like I said, from what I'm seeing day to day, people can easily afford these properties, and they're not questioning paying over the asking price. They just want the property.
Mhm.
From a conversation I've had with Akil from our mortgage broker, he seems to think there'll be a correction in sale prices, but he doesn't think there'll be a massive change. He thinks we're in for a bit of a bumpy ride with everything that's going on globally and cost of living, but he thinks just giving a second opinion on that, he seems to think it'll be a bit bumpy. Prices will correct from the sales side, but rental market will stay strong.
I need to start pulling people on this phrase. What on earth does a correction mean? Like, be factual, get off the fence. What's a correction? Are we talking there's going to be a 10% drop? Are we saying there's a bubble at the moment and therefore prices will go back to what they were at the start of the pandemic? What does a correction mean?
Do you know what? I said exactly the same thing to Akil, and I shouldn't have repeated as he said, but he said around 5%, 5-10%.
Okay.
He said it won't be a massive change. It won't drop hundreds of thousands. It will be a small adjustment of the sale price. But things will eventually go back to normal. But next couple of years, it's probably going to go on for, where then coming into sort of a couple of years' time with what the banks are predicting on long-term fixed terms, there will be.
Let's say the last 2.5 years, prices have gone up 25%, maybe in the next 18 months. Some people are talking about this correction. They're suggesting that maybe prices will drop 5 or 10% or somewhere in the middle, which we don't know.
No.
But if we're looking at it in the perspective of things going back to pre-pandemic, it's probably not the end of the world unless you've got a 5% deposit and you bought today.
And if it's a long-term goal, it won't make any difference if it goes up or down.
As long as you can afford your mortgage, you're okay.
Yeah.
What's your view on that, Mike? I can see the wheels going up there and you're thinking you're going to strike on someone.
Yeah. I think, like I said earlier, if rents are higher than mortgages, then first-time buyers will always exist.
Yeah.
Always, because I would rather own something than rent it if it's cheaper to own it. So the bottom of the market will be fired by that. I just have no doubt around it. Whether interest rates are 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever they are, if rents are higher than mortgages, then people are going to buy. I would be buying even if the house price is going down, because I'm paying off that debt and then I can retire.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm renting, I never retire. So you've got to have that. I think at the sort of reasonable top of the market, the people who are living at the top of the housing estate with a double garage, possibly those prices are overinflated at the moment. Where I was selling a house for £600,000 about a year to 18 months ago, I see the same houses available for 725 and 750 now being reduced. And I just think that whether it's agents, whether it's sellers, whatever it is, have got overexcited, and house price for every house sale, the value seems to have gone up by £25,000 to £30,000. So it's just got a little bit loopy in that part of the market. So I do see those types of 5 to 10% drops in those types of houses, because when you're borrowing £500,000, 2 and 3% interest rate rises actually mean something.
Mm-hmm.
When you're borrowing 200,000, frankly, it doesn't when rents are going up by £200 a month.
So to finish off, I'll give a live true reflection case study that might show if things happen worst case scenario on the points that we discussed. So I bought my second ever property in 2007 in Bracknell, peak of the market in everyone's view. The mortgage that I had to get on that was 6.05% interest rate. Over the 12 months after I bought it, bearing in mind I was an estate agent, so I was meant to know what I was doing. Over the next 12 months, I had to do some decorating. I refitted the kitchen. I paid 175 for it. It probably went down to about 160, 165 at one point. And in 2011, halfway through 2011, I sold that property to buy another, and I made 75 grand on it. So I kept it for 4 years. It did go down by 10-15k. I did put 10 or 15k into upgrading it, but in the end I sold it just over 250, and I had a 6.05 interest rate for the first 2 years of that. and I could afford it. It was £732 a month. I remember it vividly because I remember working out that the rental, much like you said, was £950 on that type of 2-bedroom house, thinking I'm still up on being a tenant. I own the property. Yes, it's gone down in equity. I haven't lost all the equity in it. I've still got X amount of deposit in it. And I kept it for 4 and a bit years and made 75k. And that was in the worst climate that we've experienced for the last 20 years. And it was all right. So on that note, it's been a really interesting chat to hear what's going on with the data and the people you spoke to. And I think we just have to offer up our experience and our knowledge to anyone that's listening or watching, if anyone's got any questions, because every circumstance is different. We're giving a bit of a general factual overview here, but if you want to have a chat with us, we're happy for you to drop us a WhatsApp, ping us an email, give us a call. We're just on the end of the phone at the end of the day. So thanks, chaps. And until next week's episode of the podcast, and if you're watching live and you're one of our clients, just make sure you're following our socials, because that's where we're putting out the updates daily. So follow us on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We're everywhere, YouTube, and make sure you're checking in on our Thursday 6 p.m. Q&A, which is live on our Facebook channel at Avocado Agents. Thanks, chaps.